I was considering not making a video on this car, but at the same time I thought it's just such an awesome car that I have to make a video on it. So that's what I'm doing right now. This is of course the Mercedes EQG, the electric version of the G-Class. And the G-Class has had over 20 engine options since the vehicle began production in 1979 as a military truck, obviously. And today it's a little bit different. The G-Class has morphed into the go-to SUV of every single bored housewife of Beverly Hills for the weekly grocery shopping trips. However, the tech on this G-Wagon here is pretty fantastic. Every wheel of the new G-Wagon has its own little electric motor, and this means that you can do some torque vectoring and maybe even a similarity to the Rivian tank turn, although it's obviously on a big call something different. But each wheel is individually controlled through the torque, which is pretty cool. And on top of that, what Mercedes did here is they didn't just make a brand new electric car, call it an electric G-Wagon. They basically took what the G-Wagon has always been and transformed the drivetrain while keeping the qualities of the G-Wagon intact. And that's why I think it's such a good example of how you can turn a well-known car into an electric brand without completely wiping out the features that made the internal combustion engine version of that specific model great. For example, we're going to go into the design in just a second here, but for example, this concept here keeps the body-on-frame structure as well as an independent front suspension combined with a solid rear axle, and this is all electric, which is crazy. And on top of that, the design, that's what I want to focus on in this video here. Keeping the qualities of the technical aspects of the G-Wagon, they already did, but they also did it in the design. So let's have a look at the design here of the EQG. I love the shape of this, obviously, because it is reminiscent of the original 1979 G-Wagon, although in a brand new design and graphic styling. And if you look at the EQS, I think there was some version of the EQE as well. They all had these two-tone versions of the EQ, versions of the S and the E, and I didn't think it really worked out in those designs. But here, the G-Wagon is basically made to be two-tone. I think this looks really good to have the top part, to have that be dark, and then you have the bottom part right here, the main body of the car, be silver. I think it looks really, really good. Looking at the front view here and comparing it to the current G63 AMG, it's basically the same car, although this has clearly been electrified, and you can see that thanks to all of the lights that they added onto the car graphically as well. And not just for function, but also for design and brand identity. For example, just have a look at this grille here. It's pretty cool how they integrated and created a new grille out of just using small, tiny little Mercedes stars in the grille that light up. Personally, I like it better when these small little LEDs, actually these are not Mercedes stars in the G-Wagon, they were in the EQE, but not in the EQG here. They're just blue dots, as I can see right now. But I like it better when these are not on, so you turn this off and this whole grille turns black, and the only thing you can see is the big illuminated Mercedes-Benz star in the middle. I think that's the best way to go, but I can see how this is cool to have on probably during night, I would say, and then during the day you can just turn those off and have it be a black grille and just have the Mercedes logo illuminated in the middle. Other than that, it's a cool looking design. You have this little LED circular here in the mirror, which looks a little bit out of place. This is the only thing that I think looks a little out of place on the new designs of the G-Wagon. I don't think the original G63 has it. They just have the standard indicator right here, which I think looks a little better than whatever this little thing is right there, but it's just a detail. I do like, however, if you look at these 70s trim pieces that we have right here, for example, on the G, it's very prominent here because it's black on red. You see these things right here, very 70s styling. Usually those trim pieces are long gone on pretty much every other model except the G-Wagon right here, and they kept those as well in the new EQG right here. As you can see, what they did was just add some LED strips inside of them to make it even more futuristic. And of course you have a big light bar up here, which probably, I'm not sure if that would make production, but if it does, is going to be very cool. I would also love to see these light strips on the side going into production as well, but I doubt it because they're white, and white light should only be in the front of any production car. Maybe they can have it in some other amber color or something like that. Would be very cool. Let's have a look at the side view. There's one thing inside here that I really want you to pay attention to, which I think is really, really cool. And that is how Mercedes took this design, turned the G-Wagon into an electric car. And on top of keeping the original G-Wagon design, they even pushed some historical designs even further onto the G-Class. And if you look at the wheels here, what do these remind you of? To me, they're clearly inspired by the monoblock wheels of the late 80s and the 90s of Mercedes. These are like a modern version of those wheels, and those are some of my favorite wheels, specifically if we talk about the R129 SL500 with the AMG package, the sport package around 2000, 2001, the late year SL500s with the monoblock wheels. It's one of the best looking roadsters on the road still today, in my opinion. And if I got that car, I would never get rid of the 18-inch monoblock wheels that the SL500 has. And these kind of reminds me of those wheels. They don't look too far off from being able to be going to production. They're not really anything crazy going on. The tires, yes, they have some weird pattern on here that's not gonna make it into production. But other than that, looking at it from a side view, we can clearly see here the two-tone and how well this works. I think it looks super cool. It really works with the two-tone on the Mercedes G-Wagon right here. And looking at it from the rear, last but not least, we still have, instead of having a spare tire cover or box right there, we now have a box that holds the charging cables and stuff you need for your charging instead. And I think that's an important piece here as well, because that box in the rear, the spare tire housing, it's part of the design of a G-Wagon. If you take that off, it's gonna look naked. It's gonna look like something is missing on the rear end of Mercedes. And details like that is what makes this G-Wagon such a cool design. Thoughts about details and heritage, and even implementing old school design touches and features and graphics onto this electric versions that they don't even have right here on the current production version. I'm talking about the monoblock inspired wheels here, which is probably my favorite feature of this EQG here. But the idea, the reason I wanted to make this video is just to show that this is a really good design by Mercedes, where they show that you can take an existing model and you don't have to totally make it into a bean and destroy everything it once was in order to make it electric. This is probably not gonna have a fantastic EV range, but you know what? I really don't care. I'd rather have it still be the original G-Wagon shape, lose 50 miles of range instead of having this be some sort of weird bean shape and call it a new electric G-Wagon. That would not work for me, so I'm glad that Mercedes went this way. And I hope other manufacturers are going to go this direction as well, taking old, existing, traditional, classic, legendary shapes of what they already have, turning them into electric cars without ruining the overall design and the overall spirit of the original model.